The title of my sermon this morning is Lessons Learned from Creepy Crawly Things. The scripture reading is from the very beginning of the Bible, the first book of Moses, commonly called Genesis. I'm going to read an abbreviated version of chapter 1, verses 1 through 28. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters," and God called the firmament heaven. And God said, "Let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. God called the dry land earth and the water seas, and God saw that it was good. And God said, "Let the earth put forth vegetation," and it was so. And God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to separate the day from the night," and it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. God made the stars also. And God said, "Let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the firmament of the heavens." So God created the great sea monsters and every living creature that moves, and God saw that it was good. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth living creatures according to their kinds, cattle and creeping things, and beasts of the earth." And it was so. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." And then God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply." And God was pleased, and it was good. So with this in mind, I'm going to begin my sermon today by sharing a little story with you. A few days ago, I was with my dog, an elderly collie named Mandy, out in the backyard. Shortly after we came back in the house, the cats ran over and started playing with something on the floor. I adopted a mother cat and kitten this past year, and they're very curious about everything. I thought it was a leaf that had come in on Mandy's fur. Her coat is very long, and she's always carrying in leaves and grass and pollen and sticks into the house. Everything clings to her long hair. It was close to 8 o'clock, and I had not yet turned on the lights in the room, so it was a little dark. I reached over to pick up this thing that the cats were playing with, assuming it was a leaf. And as I was carrying it over to the trash can, I felt it squirming in my hand. This was not a leaf, but some creepy, crawly thing that I was holding. It gave me the heebie-jeebies. So I quickly flipped on the light switch, and at first, it looked like a light-colored, hairless caterpillar or some other kind of worm. It was about an inch or so in length. But then I saw the big eyes and the makings of wings and realized what I was holding. Yep, it's that time again. As if it hasn't been bad enough this past year having to deal with a pandemic, now we have a plague on our hands, the cicada plague. Not to be confused with the locust plague, the story in the Old Testament in the book of Exodus, where God sent locusts to infest all the land of Egypt as a message to Pharaoh to let the people go. The locusts in that story were described as covering the face of the whole land so that the land was darkened. They ate all green things on the earth, destroying all plants and trees. Very, very destructive. Now, just to let you know, symbolically, the meaning of this story in Exodus is a reminder that God, the God within, is in control. a reminder that we are co-creators with God and the giver of life of all things. And also, to let you know, the cicadas I'm talking about today are not the same as the locusts referenced in Exodus. They are not destructive like that. Young cicada nymphs eat liquid from plant roots, while molting cicadas eat twigs. Adult cicadas do not feed, according to the US Department of Agriculture. Cicadas are mostly beneficial. They prune mature trees, aerate the soil, and once they die, their bodies serve as an important source of nitrogen for growing trees. So they're not at all destructive, actually quite the opposite. But nonetheless, I think we can call it a plague that is now upon us, the cicada plague. Do any of you remember how bad they were 17 years ago? My daughter was 10 years old at that time, and that's the age when kids are really into bugs. It doesn't matter what kind. They like to pick them up and carry them around, scaring each other and all the adults. I would come home from work every day and there would be paper grocery bags filled with cicadas at the front door. The kids in the neighborhood collected them like you'd collect shells at the beach. I'd have to take a broom and sweep a path from the front door to the car every morning to avoid stepping on them. They would get on your clothes and fly into your hair. You had to be very careful not to carry them into the house. Their shells covered the trees. Their carcasses littered the sidewalks and driveways, and their noise, it was deafening. Seriously, you can't help but be annoyed with these pesky little creatures, right? And now they're back. So why, I have to ask, why in the world did God create cicadas? Now, as I just read, the Bible tells us that God created all living things, including, as the scripture stated, all creeping things that creep the earth. And as if that wasn't enough, God then said to be fruitful and multiply. And it said that God was pleased and declared all of creation good. But cicadas? Seriously? What was God thinking? So I really had to give this some thought and do my research in order to understand why cicadas. Throughout creation, we are taught a lot about life's lessons. In Isaiah, we are taught about the rain and snow that fall from heaven. And I read from chapter 55, verses 10 and 11. For as the rain and snow come down from heaven and return not thither, but water the earth, making it bring forth and sprout, giving seed to the sower and bread to the eater, so shall my word be that goes forth from my mouth. It shall not return to me empty, but it shall accomplish that which I purpose and prosper in the thing for which I sent it. In Genesis, we're taught about the rainbow. And I read from chapter 9, verses 12, 13, and 16. And God said, "This is a sign of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for all future generations. I set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. When the bow is in the clouds, I will look upon it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is upon the earth." And we're also taught a lot through the reference of animals. In Proverbs 30, verses 24 through 28, we learn about the wisdom of very small creatures. It says, 4 things on earth, the number 4, are small, but they are exceedingly wise. The ants are a people not strong, yet they provide their food in the summer. The badgers are a people not mighty, yet they make their homes in the rocks. The locusts have no king, yet all of them march in rank. The lizard you can take in your hands, yet it is in kings' palaces. And then in Isaiah 40:31, we learn about strength and endurance from eagles. They who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like an eagle. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. I could go on, but I think that what all of this says is that we really need to open our spiritual eyes when we step outdoors. So let's open our spiritual eyes on cicadas. Do you know that there are over 150 species and over 20 subspecies of cicadas in North America? Adult female cicadas are quiet. Nope, it's not the women that run their mouths. It's the males that make that horrific noise by vibrating the sides of their abdomen. They use their muscles, not their legs, to vibrate to drum-like plates, one on each side of their abdomen. And they do this 300 to 400 times per second. It's amazing. This is a mating call, which, by the way, is the loudest song in the insect world. Female cicadas who can hear this noise from as much as a mile away, if they are interested, choose one of those drumming males by clicking their wings. The male responds, and after several successful conversations, the female will decide whether to allow him to mate. After they mate, the female will then lay between 200 and 600 eggs in a hole on a tree branch. The eggs hatch a few weeks later, and the small cicadas, known as nymphs, fall below and quickly dig underneath the ground to hide from predators and attach themselves to tree roots. There they will stay for 14 to 17 years, depending on the species, feeding on tree sap. Now, interestingly enough, this really does very little damage to the tree roots. It is said to even improve the soil by aerating it. The cicada nymph that dropped from the tree branch will split its skin 4 times while underground in order to grow. Then when their time has come, 17 years later, instinct tells them to rise above the ground again, where they will climb at night when predators cannot see them. After a climb of several feet above the ground to the safety of lower tree limbs, the last phase is for them to shed their outer skin. It takes several hours for them to complete the metamorphosis into becoming a winged adult, allowing them to fly away. The last skins, known as echoskeletons, appear on tree trunks as dry molds of cicadas. It is then that they become the chiming cicadas we are all familiar with. The adult cicadas only live for about 3 to 5 weeks above the ground. This gives them just enough time to find a mate and have the next generation start the whole process all over again. Now, I've always believed that there is something to be learned from everything we encounter in life. Every person we meet, every place we go, everything we do, and every creature we come across. And yes, even cicadas. Everything is meant to teach us something. So what on earth can we possibly learn from cicadas? Well, I've come up with 6 things that I'd like to share with you. See if you can relate to any of these, and then maybe come up with some of your own. Lesson number 1, life is short. As I said, cicadas live only about 3 to 5 weeks as adults. After they tunnel from the ground and shed their skin, they mate, lay eggs, and die. Compared to years of life in the soil, their time above ground is but a blink of the eye. And even though we might measure our adulthood in years instead of weeks, our time on the earth plane is also short. We are not promised tomorrow. We need to make the most of life today. And as we know, the future starts today, not tomorrow, but today. Lesson number 2, adulthood requires preparation. When cicadas hatch and drop to the ground, they begin a long process. They seek out tree roots, storing up nutrients for the years ahead. A huge portion of their life, 17 years of it, is spent preparing for their 3 to 5 weeks of adulthood. We too need more than physical nourishment as we grow. We need to spend time preparing our heart, our mind, and developing our character. It doesn't matter how old we become, there is always something new to learn. There's always time for growth. And with all of this time of preparation, we have an opportunity, actually more of a responsibility, to help shape the next generation. We should take this responsibility seriously, plan for what we can do to prepare for our children's future, to assure our children's future. Think of what we can do to make a difference to the life of our planet. What is it that you would like to do to make a difference? Lesson number 3, our sounds define us. The unmistakable mark of the cicada, beyond the empty shells, is its sound. The male mating song is intense, lasting from sunrise to sunset. These musical bugs can teach us the commonly neglected art of communicating. Cicadas are strong communicators and inspire the same trait in people through their songs. They have a very distinct sound that is all their own, which symbolizes the need to channel your own voice and march to the beat of your own drum. Now, while your own voice is of the utmost importance, the cicada also requires a balance of speaking and listening. Although they play their own individual songs, they do so in harmony with their community by listening to their surroundings and others around them. The cicada's themes of communication and self-discovery also have solar connections. They are heat lovers who expose themselves in the hot summer months. The summer season and the radiant sun that accompanies it symbolize light, expression, and nourishment, all of which are things that we each need in order to take care of ourselves. Without light, nothing can live, and without expression, you cannot nourish your soul. The cicada teaches us that summer is the best time to become aware of your self-nourishment. Are you warming your heart and the hearts of your loved ones with positive expression and passion? If not, it's time to reassess and illuminate yourself. You must let your own light grow inside of you before you can connect with those around you. We as humans can make a defining sound too, just like the cicadas. We can use our voices to make a difference. We should no longer hide underground in the dark and silence. We have been born anew and should freely express ourselves as the individuals we have grown into becoming. So what is it that you want to say? Lesson number 4, notice the beauty in life. Cicadas are oddly beautiful, in that they're so ugly, they're cute kind of way. Their colors are very vibrant and they have an iridescent shine to them. They are both colorful and brilliant. They definitely stand out in a crowd. Isn't this what we as human beings should aspire to do? Stand out in a crowd. Lesson number 5, celebrate the metamorphosis. Cicadas represent personal change, happiness, joy, renewal, rebirth, and transformation. A lot of people use cicadas to symbolize their own personal transformation in art, song, and poetry. The cicada inherently symbolizes what they were, as in being a nymph, and all the glory of what they have now become as an adult. Ultimately, we too have transformed from a nymph into what we are today, a greater version of ourselves than before. This is something to be joyous about. Be proud of the person you have worked so hard to become. The question to think about is this: is your metamorphosis complete, or are you still working on it? Is what you are today what you are truly meant to be? Give it some thought. And lesson number 6, It's all about the circle of life. Cicadas aid in the development, recognition, and emergence of the self throughout the various phases of the life cycle. They have a long and transformative life cycle themselves, which is why they are associated not only with the past, but also with the present, with metamorphosis, reincarnation, and change. After staying underground for much of its life, the cicada insect breaks free and loses its shell. This serves as a direct calling to people who need to come out from hiding and break free of the restrictions that they have placed on themselves, to shed your skin, so to speak. Now, oftentimes you may find it difficult to understand and be comfortable and honest with your true self. You may feel completely and utterly lost and do not know where to look. Ironically, the information and insight that individuals seek usually lies just below the surface, guarded only by blockades that we've created for ourselves. When the cicada emerges from its life underground, it symbolizes rebirth into a new life, but also places importance on examining what can and should be resurrected from the old life. Re-examining elements of the past does not necessarily need to hinder growth and progress in the future. If you can learn one thing from the past, this knowledge will prove useful. So over the coming weeks, as you deal with all these pesky, creepy, crawly critters, think of what they teach us spiritually. Think of why God created them. Think of all the good they do by fertilizing the ground and providing food for plants, trees, animals, and humans. Yes, humans too. Believe it or not, some people think of cicadas as a real delicacy. I'm told that you need to first blanch them, boil for 4 or 5 minutes, soon after collecting and before you eat them. Not only does this make their insides solidify a bit, but it gets rid of any soil bacteria that they are carrying. You can then cook them immediately or freeze them. And I'm told that if you saute them in butter, they actually taste a little like shrimp, although the flavor has also been described as being reminiscent of asparagus or almonds. Biologists who have studied cicadas say they are not only safe to eat, but may actually taste quite nice when dipped in chocolate, made into a stir fry, cooked into a pizza, add it to some fresh banana bread, or perhaps a rhubarb pie. They say they're delicious. Well, personally, I'm just going to take their word for it. But if you are so inclined, knock yourself out. Let me know how it goes. But really, spiritually, try to hear the beauty in the songs of their daily choir instead of just thinking of this sound as annoying. Remember that God created them and declared them good along with the rest of creation. And even if we may not see the goodness in them at first, you have to admit they really are pretty amazing creatures. Cicadas rise up, they live, they transform, they rain down to the ground and enrich the soil beneath the very trees from which they were spawned. They rest for a long time, and then they do it all over again. It's the circle of life, and may it be so. And to that end, speaking of the circle of life, we are very blessed to have Keith here this morning to perform this very special song. I will be accompanying him on the djembe. This song has such a wonderful beat to it for drumming. So feel free to sing or drum along with us while you're muted. I'm going to turn so that you're able to see Keith playing for us this morning.
From the day we arrive on this planet, blinking step into the sun, there is more to see than can ever be seen, more to do than can ever be done. There's far too much to take in here, more to find that can never be found. But the sun rolling high through the sapphire sky keeps great and small in the endless round. It's a circle of life, and it moves us all through despair and hope, faith and love, till we find a place on the path of winding in the circle of love. Some say eat or be eaten, some say live and let live, but all are agreed as they join the stampede, you should never take more than you give. Some of us fall by the wayside, some of us soar to the stars, and some of us sail through our troubles. Some have to live with our scars in the circle of life. It's the wheel of fortune, it's the leap of faith, it's the band of hope.